If your business isn't feeling consistent, maybe it's not your strategy. What if it's your structure? And I don't mean the structure in terms of your funnel or your content or your offer, but actually you are structuring your leadership of yourself. I'm sure you've heard it said, you don't rise to your goals. You fall to the level of your standards and your internal operating system. And if that system is reactive, unclear, emotionally volatile, or inconsistent, your business is going to reflect that every single time. So today we are taking, in part 3, the work of Rudolf Steiner and his 6 moral exercises and applying them into something practical, something you can actually live, lead, and scale from. We are turning these 6 moral exercises into a weekly CEO operating system. Now, if you have not listened to part 1 and part 2 of this series, make sure you go back to those episodes and listen to them before we dive in here so that you can have the foundation for this operating system. Because what we're going to build in today's episode is a rhythm for how you think, how you decide, how you execute, and how you regulate so that your leadership becomes stable regardless of what's happening externally. You get to become the eye of the hurricane, the calm in the chaos. And as we enter into more and more chaotic times, being that center is how we will rise together. I am Kimberly Spencer, founder of Crown Yourself, national TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and high-performance business coach and visibility strategist to visionary founders who are choosing to step in to conscious leadership and lead with heart, service, and full self-expression. Welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast, where we support conscious leaders in leveling up their business on every plane of life, from the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual realms. I want to welcome you back for Rudolf Steiner's 6 moral exercises and the application into a CEO operating system. Here's what we're going to break down: how each of these 6 disciplines maps into your week as a CEO, how to apply them daily, not just conceptually, and how to build a business that doesn't rely on motivation, but that gets to be grounded in your inner command. Because when you have a structure for your thinking and a standard for your action and a rhythm for your leadership, you don't just build a business, you build authority. And in building authority, builds a movement and builds your legacy. Let's dive in. This is the weekly CEO operating system. This is a 6-part framework for sovereign leadership, ethical decision-making, and sustainable execution so that you can scale. This is designed to help a founder, CEO, visionary lead with clear thinking, clear action, emotional steadiness, resilient optimism, adaptive learning, and integrated leadership. You can use this as a weekly rhythm. We're going to start with Clarity Monday. The CEO focus is strategic clarity. In the beginning of the week, begin the week by leading your mind before your mind leads you. Practice identifying what are the top 3 priorities for this week. Separate your facts, your assumptions, your fears, and your opportunities. Choose one major decision that needs clear thinking and write it out before discussing it with your team. This will create greater clarity and also create greater resonance that applies to the other 6 moral exercises. Here are a few questions to play with. What is actually true right now for me in my business? What stories am I telling myself? Where am I letting noise dilute strategy? What matters most this week? Every team member should know top priorities. What does success look like this week? What is not a priority? Confused leadership will create a confused culture, which will create a confused team where they don't know if they're all rowing in the right direction. And their desire is to serve the mission, ideally, if you have some great team members. So make sure that you as the leader are rowing in the direction and are clear on where you are taking the team. Number 2 is Execution Tuesday, which applies to Rudolf Steiner's moral exercise on the control of will. This is your focus on integrity in action. And why I particularly like this on being on a Tuesday is correlated to the planet Mars. And you'll have to go listen to our Past on structuring your week according to astrology because Mars is the planet of action. So it's perfect for execution on a Tuesday. The intention, though, is for you to just do what you said you were going to do. So this can very simply be choosing one non-negotiable leadership action for the week, reviewing the commitments that you've made to clients, to team, to partners, to yourself, closing the loops on unfinished decisions or dangling promises, maybe even closing some of those tabs that you have open, visionary, tracking whether your calendar reflects your actual values. Your reflection before you even get started on the Tuesday, ask yourself, where are you overpromising? Where are you avoiding necessary action? What commitment needs to be honored this week? And what small act of discipline could you start practicing that would build self-trust? Maybe that small act is you just actually keeping that commitment to exercise at 6:30 in the morning instead of hitting the snooze alarm. Maybe that small act is sending out 3 LinkedIn invitations every day. And that is a practice that you have reverence for and you honor and you keep that practice. Maybe that practice is posting one piece of content every day that is new and fresh and real and alive for what you are speaking in this moment. As a team, you can encourage your team to apply this by creating a new norm around ownership, around follow through, around deadline integrity, and around proactive communication when something slips. This makes sure that your team is on board with making sure that everybody is operating in as much integrity as possible. Trust is built through repeated proof, not just good intentions. One of my mentors had a standard where he shifted his core team value in his company to being integrity, doing what you're going to do. And he created a reward system for integrity for his team, asking his team who showed the most integrity in this team on this week. And every week they would celebrate the team member who kept the most amount of commitments to others and to themselves. The third moral exercise is an equanimity of feeling. So we can practice this as a regulation Wednesday. In this focus, you can practice emotional steadiness under pressure. Your goal is to lead from a grounded response, not reactive emotion. So your practice can be looking at what triggered you this week. Where did you react instead of respond? What conversations needs the best, most regulated version of yourself? What would a calm leadership lens look like? Your practice, should you choose to, would be pausing before responding to a difficult email, feedback, Slack issue, or financial stress. It would be noticing the emotional charge you have around sales, around visibility, around tension. Maybe you're used to a chaotic roller coaster of sales, of the ups, the downs. Well, notice that. Notice the emotions that come with that. You're familiar with that. What would happen instead if you actually had emotional stability? What would happen instead if you felt safe with having consistent sales coming in every single day? Build in white space before high stakes conversations. Review where your nervous system, not your wisdom, has been in charge. Review where those moments in your business have been in the past week where you have been reactive, where you have experienced the highs or the lows. As a team, you can normalize pausing before reacting, naming attention without blame, handling conflict directly and respectfully, and not making emotionally flooded decisions. A regulated leader creates a regulated company. So when you start practicing greater regulation in your body, you'll be able to lead your team better, both your team in your business and your team in your family. Steiner's moral exercise number 4 is in positivity. You can have this be Resilience Thursday, where your focus is on meaning making and opportunity recognition. I also like this because Thursdays are all about expansiveness, since Thursday is ruled by Jupiter. The weekly intention is train the company to learn, not just to judge. So in this space, look at what challenges, what setbacks, what disappointments happened in this week. Ask what it revealed. Ask what it refined. Ask what it allowed you to redirect. Look at where you can celebrate some progress, not just celebrating outcomes, and look for the hidden assets within the current constraints. So let's say you have a customer challenge. Great. That allows you to create an SOP. Great. You had a failed launch. Okay, awesome. That allows you to have a little bit more diligence in looking at the skill sets of lead generation that you may need to cultivate. Ask yourself, in your week on Thursdays. What did this challenge teach us? What is still working? What's working well? What strength is this season demanding from us? And what opportunity is hiding inside of this friction? When we start to recognize our problems as opportunities that allow us to grow, that's when we have exponential return. As a team, this can look like launch debriefs, campaign debriefs, project debriefs, mistake debriefs, and really just asking without shame or guilt, what worked? What didn't? What did we learn? What can we improve? And allowing for that growth mindset to be cultivated with positivity. Resilience gets built when people are taught to extract wisdom from mistakes instead of collapsing into blame. When we can extract the wisdom of our mistakes, that is where we can have exponential growth. The fifth of Steiner's moral exercises is an open-mindedness. You can apply this into having Innovation Friday, where your focus is on adaptive intelligence. Your intention then is to question the assumptions before reality has to. A practice you can apply is reviewing one belief around the market, a client, an offer, a strategy. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. But what belief do you have around your current circumstances that are impacting your business? This can also be inviting dissent or perspective from the team, asking them to play devil's advocate on a strategy. Not just surrounding yourself with yes men, but truly allowing for iron to sharpen iron. This can be asking for what you may be missing. What are you not seeing? What do you need to see in order for this strategy to succeed? This can be testing ideas instead of defending them too early. Questions that you can ask yourself on Innovation Friday are, where could I be wrong? What assumption could be wrong that I'm currently making about the market, the client, the offer? What are we assuming about our clients and about our market and about our community? What is changing that we need to notice? What feedback have we resisted because it's challenged our identity and who we are? How you can apply this as a team is you can create a culture where people are allowed to say, hey, I see this differently, or I think we're missing something, or this data suggests another direction. I looked at this when we were looking at our social media and I said, oh, this data suggests another direction with our social media. Great. Awesome. That allowed for us to pivot based on a positive forward because we were open-minded to not being beholden to a strategy. Where we start to struggle in business is when we get stuck on this is the only best right way for this thing to work. And that's not necessarily the case. We can allow for the team to ask, can we revisit this assumption? This allows for us to operate from curiosity, which protects us from arrogance. Our egos love to get in the way and love to want to be right. But when we can operate with open-minded curiosity, this allows for us to pivot based on reality and on what is showing us versus what we want to be and may not be exactly our starting point. I usually use the metaphor with my clients. You can't run a marathon by starting at mile 16. You may want to be at mile 16, but you got to go through mile 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 16 before you even get to mile 16. Your strategy may work for mile 16, but you're at mile 2. Awesome. Okay, well, how do we need to challenge the strategies that we're applying at 2 so that we can get to 16? The sixth of Steiner's moral exercises is in harmony and balance. So this can be in your Sunday or Saturday review, but this allows for whole system integrated leadership. This is where you bring thinking, action, emotion, optimism, and adaptability into alignment. Your practice can be a weekly review of all 5 areas. Most successful CEOs have some form of a weekly review. This just brings some structure rooted in Steiner's moral exercises. So you can ask yourself, was I clear? Was I disciplined? Was I regulated? Was I resilient? And was I open to change? Then ask, what's out of balance? What needs recalibration this week? What needs greater clarity this week? Where do I need to double down on my discipline? Where may I, in this upcoming week, get emotionally thrown off? Maybe you have a difficult conversation with a team member or a client coming up. This can be also a reflection of asking yourself, where did I lead well? So often, as high achievers, we do not give ourselves credit for where we are actually doing well, where we're actually succeeding and thriving. Ask yourself, where did I lead well? Where did I fracture? Where did I fuck up? Where did I make a mistake? What leadership muscle do I need to develop right now? Maybe it's the practice of saying no. Maybe it's the practice of content creation. Maybe it's the practice of asking for the sale. Maybe it's the practice of reaching out more often. Apply these practices into your weekly review so that you can recognize and integrate the growth. You can also use weekly reviews, not just for project reviews, but also for a whole culture with your team. How are you working together? What feels really strong? What feels strained? What needs repair, refinement, or reinforcement? This allows you to scale with integration so that you're stronger rather than fragile because you don't want to mess up or step on somebody else's toes, or you don't want to make someone else feel bad. This allows for a greater level of transparency and harmony within the entirety of the unit of the business that you're creating. So, to recap, the weekly CEO Rhythm at a glance. Monday, clarity. Set your priorities, define what's true, reduce as much noise as possible. Tuesday, execution. Honor your commitments, do the important work, close those open loops. Wednesday, regulate. Manage your emotional energy, respond instead of react. Practice engaging in communication and engaging in challenging communication. Thursday, resilience, extract lessons, celebrate growth, find more opportunity, practice innovation. And Friday, integrate, challenge assumptions, gather insight, review the week as a whole, and make a plan to operate with greater clarity next week. And if you want an ultra practical breakdown to support you in this, then click below for my Did Better, Do Better 60-second review checklist. This will allow you to sharpen your discernment as a leader in the practice of these 6 moral exercises, in the application of applying these to your business and to your leadership. If you love this episode, make sure to hit the like button if you're watching this on YouTube, and go ahead and subscribe so that you never miss an episode like this, where we are integrating business and spirituality and consciousness and parenting and all the things so that we grow and expand our capacity as humans to hold more, receive more, give more, and live more abundantly and consciously. As always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now. I'll see you next time.